And we are live. This is the Fantasy Fanatics MMA podcast. I am James Lynch. He is JHK. If you haven't watched the show before, basically we go and preview an upcoming notable fight. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the co-main event of UFC 264. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Gilbert Burns. Can't wait to break this one down. But first, John, what's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. Perfect, man. Today was a long day. I had 10 interviews, one of those record days, but I'm here, man, and I'm energized. I drank like 3 coffees and a Pepsi Cola.
What a way to finish off the day, though, getting to work with me and do this podcast. Always enjoy it. This is like one of the highlights of my week, so really happy to be doing the show here with you. I'm just getting my day started. I did 9 interviews yesterday. Almost had you beat, but there you go. We're going neck and neck. As always, just want to remind everyone, if you're watching this live or the replay, it doesn't matter. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel as soon as we can. We do fight previews every week. We're giving you guys that early look on really upcoming notable fights. And also got to remind everyone to download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. I got my picks in this week. I wish I had my picks in last week because I actually did pretty well overall. I think I only got 2 fights wrong, the Bontrain and Schnell fight and the Sean Soriano and Christos Yagos fight. Outside of that, my picks were perfect. So really happy about that last week. And I'm feeling pretty good about this week. We've got Bellator. We've got the UFC this weekend. We'll do our underdog picks later in the show. But for now, we're going to be talking all things Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns. Also, last thing, if you guys have any questions, post them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as we're done our breakdown of Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns. This show is basically a preview and then a Q&A, so just keep that in mind. We like to focus on the fight when it comes to the questions, but if you guys have other questions, that's totally cool as well. All right, like I mentioned it there, UFC 264 going to be taking place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. If it weren't for my damn government, I'd be over there watching the card in Vegas. I think I've gone to every international fight week the last couple of years, so kind of bummed I'm not going to get to see this one, but nonetheless, this is the co-main event. Gilbert Burns, Stephen Thompson. As we usually do, we talk about how we got here with this fight, right? So Stephen Thompson coming off that big win over Jeff Neal. He's been, in that range of getting a title shot for a while. He had that one little blip with Anthony Pettis. We'll get into that in a sec. But, Stephen Thompson looking to get closer towards that title shot. And for Gilbert Burns, it's about being a contender still. He's coming off the title loss to his former teammate, Kamaru Usman. So now he has a shot at redemption of, maybe winning this fight and then maybe one more and getting a title shot again. But your thoughts on the matchup itself? I think it makes sense. I think the only bummer is it's not Thompson and Leon Edwards, but Nate Diaz threw a wrench in those plans.
Yeah, it's a great matchup, and it's a perfect matchup for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to face a guy that's coming off a title shot. I think that this is going to be able to boost Thompson and even boost Burns if he beats Thompson, because I think Thompson is one of the hottest fighters in the division right now, even though he doesn't get much attention. But you know what, though? If he goes out there, either one of these and puts out one of those like landmark performances, I think they'll be pushing themselves next in line for that belt, man.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Let's zone in first on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 16-4-1 record. He's 38 years old, but you wouldn't know it watching this guy fight. He put on a vintage performance in his last outing against Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal was the favorite in that fight, I believe, and Neal was thought as sort of the next big thing, and Thompson really put a halt to that. It was a dominant win. It wasn't like a close fight. It wasn't a fight where, maybe the judges got it wrong. It was a dominant win from Stephen Thompson, about as dominant of a win as you're going to get outside of a finish. So really big win there for Thompson. And then even before that, he fought a similar fighter in Vicente Luque, very dangerous, an up-and-comer as well. He also had a dominant win in that one as well. So 2 straight wins. And here's the crazy thing about Stephen Thompson as well. We'll get into sort of his stats in a second here in terms of the height and reach and all that. But I mean, you could make a case for Stephen Thompson being undefeated almost in his last 6 fights. Now, I know obviously the Pettis fight, he clearly lost. He was knocked out in that fight, but 9 times out of 10, he fights Anthony Pettis. I think he beats him. He was winning that fight. He got a Superman punch. I hate to use the word fluke or lucky or whatever, but I mean, that's about as close as you're going to get to that in MMA. Pettis was not winning that fight. He knocked out Thompson. We've never seen Thompson knocked out in the octagon, so it was a bit of a weird fight there. The Darren Till fight, I thought he won. That was in Till's backyard, if you remember. If you go to MMA decisions, majority media members scoring that fight for Thompson. And then the Woodley fight, the rematch at UFC 209, I also thought he edged that one out, but again, he's putting himself in these situations where at the odd, like the Woodley and Till fight shouldn't have been as close as they were. He should have won those. So, it's an L on his resume. But dare I say Thompson might be one of the most underrated guys at 170. If you look at, who he's fought, who he's beat, and, just the fact that, like I said, he's had dominant wins over Neal, Luque, and also Jorge Masvidal. People talk about Masvidal being this title contender. The last sort of dominant loss that Masvidal had prior to fighting Usman was Wonderboy. So that's another thing to keep in mind here as well. But Thompson's got a lot of good wins on his resume here as well. You got Rory McDonald. That was a big win. I was at that fight. That was in Ottawa with the really with the arena that didn't have any air conditioning. It was not good news there. I remember him knocking out Johnny Hendricks the fight before that. Everyone said, oh, Hendricks is going to out wrestle Thompson. Didn't happen. This guy's been in the UFC for a while, 2012 since he's been in here February. So you got to think of just, the amount of experience he's had in the octagon and, height and reach wise, 6 feet tall with a 75-inch reach. It's a great build for the division. And just to compare that to Gilbert Burns, he's 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. That's one thing here, John. Like, people talk about how old Wonderboy is. Gilbert Burns is 34. It's not that much, younger than Stephen Thompson. And if you even look at the height and reach here, Burns is, a little bit smaller here, right? Wonderboy's going to have the height and reach advantage. So your thoughts on Stephen Thompson and what he brings to the table? Obviously, exceptional striking. Unusual striking too. There's no one in the division like Stephen Thompson in terms of his striking. So your thoughts on Wonderboy?
That's exactly right there. Nobody in the division, and dare I say, nobody in the whole promotion has the striking of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I think that is the difference maker in every matchup. Last matchup against Jeff Neal, I think a lot of people underestimated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson heading into that fight because they think so highly of Jeff Neal. And I know why they think so highly of Jeff Neal, but Stephen Wonderboy Thompson went in there and blanked him. And he blanked Luque. And he blanked Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, blanked them, like, through 5 rounds, domination, right? And Jorge Masvidal fight was 3 rounds, and also the Luque fight was 3 rounds. But he blanked all of them, right? Yeah. Like you said, the Pettis fight, that happens in MMA. You know what I mean? You get caught right on the
Gegard, Mousasi, Uriah Hall. I could give you a list of examples of fights where, like, a fighter has a misstep and, it's one of those things that happens. They have look at Tim Kennedy and Michael Bisping. Like, that's a fight. Like, people forget that Kennedy dominated Michael Bisping, and then Bisping goes up there and knocks a Rockhold. Sorry to interrupt, but you do have fights like that where it's like every now and then a fighter will have a weird loss in between there. Yeah,
but he's had a couple weird losses, right? Like that Darren Till. I don't even think he really unanimous decision to Darren Till in that fight. I don't understand that. That just shows you that judging is pretty shitty in MMA right now, and even back then. Like Thompson, man, he's just, if you go through the resume, he has so many bonuses. He has so many amazing knockouts. He has so many amazing fights, man. And he has so many amazing fights in front of him too. Even though he's old, he hasn't taken too much damage. What fight has he taken a lot of damage in? Maybe the Woodley fights. That's it, right? Do you remember him taking damage other than the knockout?
No, like, and that's a great point. Like, this is not a guy who you see in a lot of wars. A lot of his fights are clean. He's and the fights he's losing, like even the Till fight, Till can inflict a lot of damage. We saw what he did to Whitaker. Like, you didn't see Thompson really get beat up in that fight. By the way, I went back and check this out, and this is about as clean of a robbery as you can potentially see here. 20 media members scored the fight for Thompson, beating Darren Till. Just 3 scored it for Darren Till. 20 for Thompson, and one of them was Sean Sheehan. Actually, no, it wasn't Sean Sheehan. It was Sean Ross Sapp. I got to smack him for that. How do you score that for Till? Anyways, but you get what I'm saying. I think most people felt like he won that fight. So if you're looking at the overall resume, I mean, Pettis, he definitely lost. Woodley, whatever, but I mean, it just goes to show that, like, this guy could very well be on a 6-fight win streak as opposed to whatever his record is now. But either way, back-to-back dominant wins, that should speak for itself, right? So there we go. That is Stephen Thompson. Let's closer look at him. Now let's look at Gilbert Burns here. Gilbert Burns, as I can't say anything. 34 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach, coming off the loss to Kamaru Usman. Prior to that, he had back-to-back wins over Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia. He's done pretty well at welterweight since moving up. So he moved up in 2019 when he fought Alexei Kuchikeno, who was undefeated at the time. He was a slight underdog in that fight, got a decision win there. Got a decision win against Gunnar Nelson. And, obviously the Maia win was what really sort of opened people's eyes up. He finished Maia in the first round, then, beat Woodley, and then ended up getting the title shot here. So the thing that's kind of interesting to me about Burns is I think he's might even be, I don't want to say he's undersized, but I mean, this is a former lightweight fighter who had to cut a lot of weight. A lot of people, I remember going into the Woodley fight, people were saying, oh, well, this is a guy that got knocked out by Dan Hooker. And it's like, yeah, but that's because the weight cut was really bad at him. Like, I was at that fight. I remember interviewing Burns, and he looked pretty, drained out. And I definitely think that the weight cut had an impact on him getting finished in the first round by Dan Hooker. So I don't think you can really look at his lightweight record and really sort of, use that as a measuring stick for how he's going to do here. But yeah, he's had some good wins overall. Had a lot of finishes. His stand-ups really come a long way. I mean, this was a guy that started in jiu-jitsu, but we've seen the power there. Again, we don't see everyone knocking out Damian Maia type thing. So, Burns has absolutely, evolved his game, so to speak. And he even dropped, he hit Usman with his best shot. Usman's just a very durable guy, so he wasn't able to put him out. But I think, Burns hits that shot on some other people, they might go down. So you got to look at what Burns has done. But here's the thing where I think people get a little bit blinded is you got to look at the overall resume at welterweight. If you look at Wonderboy and you look at Gilbert Burns, Wonderboy has a way better resume overall. I mentioned the Rory McDonald win, Johnny Hendricks. You look at Luke and Jeff Neal, like Burns only has had a handful of fights at 170. And to me, that's not enough of a sample size to say this is a guy that's, like super legit. Like he might be, but we just don't, like, to me, if you're looking at the overall body of work, I would favor Wonderboy in terms of the resume. He's been in the weight class longer. He's fought better guys overall. Like when you look at wins like Cucicano and Gunnar Nelson, they don't look so good right now. I mean, I don't even think Cucicano's in the UFC anymore. Gunnar Nelson, not really what we thought he is. And even Maia, like Maia's fighting Bilal Muhammad right now. Maia's on the tail end of his career as well. So, and Woodley, like this is what I'm saying. Like it's really tough. Like if you look at it at 170, Gilbert Burns does not have a single win over a legit ranked guy right now. All of them are against kind of iffy guys. Like Maia would put him in that category too, just as getting a little bit older. But saying that, Burns comes from a good camp. He's getting pushed all the time. He's got good training partners. Burns can absolutely win this fight. I just don't know where I stand, so to speak. And we'll get to our pick in a second here. But your assessment of Gilbert Burns obviously has evolved since moving up to 170. But, I do wonder how the striking will go when he's facing a guy like Wonderboy.
When you look at Burns and you look at his resume, the lightweight portion of his career, you got to kind of erase that out of your mind, right? Because of the weight cut. And I feel like that, didn't play well for his health, at lightweight. But when he went up to welterweight, he's a perfect example of a fighter that grabbed opportunity by its balls. You got to go back and listen to, remember what he did. He went out there, he was doing the Kevin Holland before Kevin Holland, right? He was going out there fighting whoever they offered him. And then that's why he was getting those opportunities. That's why he got the Damian Maia fight. That's how he got the Tyron Woodley fight. And it led to the title fight, right? And I thought stylistically, he had a good chance of beating Usman. And he did have a first round that was very good. That was on the feet too. But it just didn't last. It just seemed like, we know Usman, he's one of the best in the whole, in this generation, he's probably one of the best, right? So, Burns goes in there, but I still think Burns has the ability to get back into that title contention. And this is the fight that could put him back in there. This fight, maybe another one after this, if he wins it. I'm not like, I'm not like you, James. I'm not saying that he's, he hasn't fought nobody, because I think he's fought Woodley, and I thought Woodley was still pretty good at that time. Just Burns was much better, and the trajectory of his career was at a different level. And Maia, I don't know. That Maia win is, I don't know. I think Burns took that advantage, and went in there and knocked out Maia. Maia, we've seen him in the last couple of fights, not so great, but I still think Burns is in the prime of his career, just like Thompson is. And this fight is going to be a lot closer than I think people, believe it's going to be.
We'll see. And that's what's so interesting about this fight, is we don't really know how it goes. And by the way, I think this is the next best option for Wonderboy not fighting Leon Edwards. Gilbert Burns, great opportunity. Because again, if Burns wins this fight, he's back in the driver's seat. He's maybe a fight or two away, or you could even argue maybe is, close to getting a rematch. I don't think they'll do it right now because we just had that fight this year. But, if he beats Wonderboy, especially a finish, that puts him right back in that category. And conversely for Wonderboy, he's been waiting for a fight to, get him back in the title shot. Unfortunately, a Jeff Neal and Vicente Luque is not going to do that. But you beat a Gilbert Burns just based on his ranking and who he just fought. I think you could absolutely make the case for a title shot as well. And another couple interesting things I forgot to sort of add to this. I did have a chance to speak to Wonderboy last week. I got some insight into his camp. This is a negative for him. No Chris Weidman, right? That was a big part of his past camps. And not that Weidman's really close to Gilbert Burns. He's a wrestler and he's got some striking. But I mean, that is sort of one thing to keep an eye on. Now, interesting thing, and you saw my tweet the other day when I had it up there, he's bringing in Ryan Hall. I know there's a relationship there dating back to when they used to train together at TriStar. Is Ryan Hall, going to be the difference to beat Gilbert Burns? Probably not. But the fact that Hall is a very unorthodox jiu-jitsu practitioner, that'll be good in case this fight goes to the ground. But that's a big if. How many times we've seen Wonderboy taken to the ground and tested on the ground? It just doesn't happen because he's got very good takedown defense. This is a guy who's working with, guys like Carl Reed, who you remember on Contender Series, who's an outstanding wrestler. He's getting to work with other guys that are, sort of shoring up that side of his game as well. So we'll see what type of camp he's come up with. Again, I know he's bringing other guys in, but I did like the Hall move as well. Who else did he work? There's someone else he worked with, and I can't remember.
I wanted to throw something in about the Hall thing, because Hall's jiu-jitsu is completely different from Gilbert Burns.
Of course, yes, exactly.
Gilbert Burns just beat one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the world like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
dominated him, right? And Gilbert Burns, man, his top game is second to none. Ryan Hall's more of a leg lock guy. You know what I mean? I don't know how that fits into the equation. And like you said, I feel like Chris Weidman was more of a value than Ryan Hall would be in this camp. You know why? Because of the wrestling, and also Chris Weidman is very good with submissions. You know what I mean? He's not like a slouch. He's a black belt, right? He learned under Matt Serra. He's very good. I think that would have been a better fit for this camp, but we will see, like you said. But I heard Gilbert Burns brought some secret weapon in to help him prepare for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't know who exactly it is, but I heard that there's somebody there, some like unorthodox striker.
Could be. I don't know. Unless it's Israel Adesanya, I don't know who else is going to really match that tip. You know what I'm saying, though? Like, Thompson has such an interesting karate stance and karate style that you're not going to get elsewhere. Just a couple things I got to point out as well. And by the way, that other training partner I was thinking of was Chase Hooper. I know Hooper got to spend some time there. That wasn't for Thompson. That was for Hooper, obviously. But I just thought I'd bring that up as well. But if you look at it here, Thompson never been submitted. And the last submission win for Burns was the Mike Davis fight, which was back in 2019. So I don't think that's the strategy. I think the strategy is, I think Burns has fallen in love with the stand-up. I think he feels like he can finish Thompson similar to Anthony Pettis. The other thing we got to bring up as well is at some point, Thompson's going to slow down. Is it this fight? He's 38. He didn't show it in his last fight, but we also got to point out with Thompson, he hasn't fought a ton, right? Like, he fought Neal in December. He's now going to be fighting here in July. That's a long layoff, to not be fighting. And you're seeing after every fight, he's getting injuries. His body is slowing down a little bit. Before the Jeff Neal fight, it was Vicente Luque in November. Before that, it was the Pettis fight in March, earlier that year. So he's not fighting as frequently as I'd like. So that is one thing to sort of keep in mind there. The activity level definitely goes to Gilbert Burns as well. But this is my thing. I don't think Burns is going to try and take this to the ground. To me, he's fallen in love with the stand-up. I think he feels very confident that he can do what Pettis did, which is knock Thompson out. And I think that's a bad idea, because why try and go toe-to-toe with a guy who's got unorthodox striking, something that you're not used to? He's never fought a guy like Wonderboy before. Why not go to your bread and butter and work your jiu-jitsu? But saying that, again, when have we seen Thompson on the ground? We just haven't seen that too often. So that's what makes this fight very interesting for me as well, in terms of, what will be the game plan going into the fight here. I do see it standing. And we got to point out, with Thompson being the bigger guy, is Burns going to be able to get in on the inside? It's going to be tough to say. I mean, you could argue that Thompson could be fighting at middleweight, although he's fine, cutting to 170, just with his build in the division as well. So this is a little bit interesting there as well. All right, let's get to the pick. I think you guys kind of know where I'm going on this one. I do like Stephen Thompson in this fight. And to me, it's just not only the resume, not only the overall body of the work, not only the fact that I think this fight's going to stay standing and I would give the edge to Thompson, but it's also a 3-round fight. I don't know if, I think with Thompson's style, this should be 5 rounds, by the way. If they're giving Nate Diaz a 5-round fight, why are they not doing that for this fight? I don't get that. This should absolutely be 5 rounds with the implications involved. But no, I think Thompson, he's going to go out there and look great. Again, I feel more comfortable picking a Thompson at this point, similar to what we had last week with Oliveira and Chandler, where I think if you look at the overall body of work, Thompson has fought better guys in the weight class. So for me, I feel better picking him because we have more evidence of him getting it done. You could be completely right, John, where Burns is getting these impressive wins over guys he's supposed to beat. It could be that he's that good. But again, those Gunnar Nelsons and Kuchikeno fights, it's like Thompson hasn't fought anyone close to that. He's fought much better fighters. So that's where, for me, I feel better picking a Stephen Thompson. So what I think is going to happen in this fight is it's going to stay standing. Thompson's going to be able to pick his shots. He's going to frustrate Burns. Burns is not going to be able to get in the inside. He's not going to be able to take Thompson to the ground, and he's not going to be able to work his ground game because Thompson's going to be so good on his feet that it's not even going to get there. And Thompson's just going to frustrate him, and Thompson's going to win a decision. He's not going to knock out Gilbert Burns. We've seen Burns finish by Usman, but in general, very tough guy to finish. I don't think we'll see a finish. I think we'll see a Thompson decision in this one, and I will be looking for that decision prop because it's only a 3-round fight. If it was 5 rounds, yeah, maybe we'd be more inclined to say a stoppage here. But I just think Burns is going to try and come out, do what he can. And plus, he's coming off a loss here. Wonderboy's coming off 2 wins. There's a lot of pressure on Burns to prove that he's a contender. A lot more pressure on him, in my opinion, to get it done. So I'm going to go Stephen Thompson by decision to get it done over Gilbert Burns in the co-main event of UFC 264. What is your pick?
Thompson is 38 years old, right? And I'm just waiting. I'm not waiting, but I'm just wondering, will this be the fight where he shows his age? Will it come out in this fight? That's what I'm looking at right here, right? Because we know he has the skills, we know he can move, but once his speed and his movement goes, then nothing's gonna really work for him, right? And could we see his age catch up to him in this fight against Gilbert Burns? Because what I see Gilbert Burns doing is going in there, of course, striking with him because he comes from he's coached by one of the best striking coaches in the game, and he's fell in love with the striking. He's been knocking guys out, or at least knocking them out and then submitting them, right? So I see him going in there, striking with Stephen Thompson. If he's not getting the better of it, or even if he is, he's going to go in there and he's going to clinch him. He's going to clinch him and drag him on the fence. Clinch him, drag him on the fence, and try to tire him out. We know Thompson has a great gas tank, but we haven't seen anybody go in there and clinch him and try to drag him. You know what I mean? Not even Woodley could do it, right? So I think Gilbert Burns will be able to do that. I think his wrestling and his grappling is good enough, and I feel like he's going to go in there and drag him, and then eventually he's going to be able to take him down. And he's not going to be able to take him down just once. I think he's going to be able to take him down a few times. And when he does take him down, I think he's been able to finish him on the ground, like third round. I feel like it's going to be a third round finish. Gilbert Burns, submission or TKO on the ground. And Thompson's going to show his age. I love Thompson, man, and I love his style, but that stuff catches up to you. And I think Gilbert Burns is the guy.
That's so interesting. Well, first off, I love this is like one of the first times we've had like a total disagreement on a fight, which is great. And we can definitely talk some smack once the fight comes around. I mean, we got lots of time. It's July. But yeah, I don't know. I just can't picture it. Like no one's really done that to Thompson. Even the first Woodley fight, which he did get dropped in that fight. I was at that one. That was UFC 205, one of the best cards of all time, by the way. I still felt like Thompson was still you remember it was kind of boring fight leading up to the third round or the later rounds, and then Woodley dropped him. And then of course that's what secured the draw. But I mean, you could have almost given that to Woodley as well. But I think the fact that Thompson's been able to survive that. And the other thing is like, you know, he's fought guys with knockout power, like Masvidal, Till. Those guys can, you know, punch your ticket out. And the fact that Thompson was able to survive that is interesting. So we'll see. You could be 100% right. This could be the fight where, you know, Thompson doesn't look like Thompson. But I don't know, man. I've yet to see any evidence of that. And the fact he fought a guy in Jeff Neal, who's, in my opinion, got similar power to Burns, not the pedigree, obviously, with the grappling and everything else, but the fact that he was able to neutralize a guy like Jeff Neal, I think he can do the same to Burns. But we'll see. I think it might be a case of me underestimating Burns, perhaps, and maybe overrating Thompson. But I like Thompson in this fight. I think he wins the decision. And I think he does so pretty decisively in the sense that, you know, I think it'll be a clear decision. It won't be like a robbery or anything like that.
Also, Luque fought Thompson, and I think Luque is probably helping Burns out in this camp.
He is.
Even though if it's not physically, it's, you know, they're very close. They're calling each other all the time, and he's probably helping them out, film study, all of that. You know what I mean? And I think that's a huge value for Gilbert Burns in this fight.
Could be. By the way, shout out to Vicente Luque. His son was just born today. I saw that on Instagram.
Oh, really?
So congrats to him, the
congrats
first-time
to
dad.
him.
It's weird.
What
I
a
thought
nice
he had,
kid.
when I interviewed him, I was like, oh, is that like, how many kids is this now? He's like, oh, this is my first. I was like, I just assumed you were a dad. You're such like a mature person for your age. So
we got his doppelganger that works with us.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm surprised he's here doing the show. He came straight from the hospital. So there you go. Our producer, Michael, who looks a lot like Vicente Luque. We'll get him on the show one of these days so you guys can do the doppelganger comparison. So there you go. I'm going Thompson. He's going Gilbert Burns. We'll talk more about this, I'm sure, closer to fight time, and we're going to be previewing this. We'll be posting the preview closer to fight time as well. But yeah, we're definitely on board with this fight. It's going to be a good one. Okay, so we'll get to some questions. Again, before we do that, just hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you download the Fantasy Fanatics MMA app where you can do your picks every week. We've got Bellator on Friday. We have the UFC on Saturday as well, and we'll do our underdog picks a little bit later in the show. But for now, we will get to some questions here. Let's get to the Radical Raw. She says, is Burns chinny? He got knocked out by a jab. I won't say he's chinny. Again, I put a lot of stock into that weight cut when he lost to Dan Hooker. That was the last time he was finished. Outside of that, he hasn't, to my knowledge. I'm just looking here. I don't think he's been finished before other than Usman and Hooker. So I wouldn't say he's chinny, but that's another thing, like the damage factor. Like Thompson's really not taking any damage. Burns has been knocked out twice. And he's had the tough weight cuts too. Like that's got to take something out of him as well at 34. The fact that he was cutting so much weight to get to 155. But we'll see. Again, you know, this could be Thompson's time where he regresses a bit. So we'll see.
I don't think he's chinny. I think
he's not chinny.
A perfectly placed jab. He got dropped, and you remember Usman had to go down there and beat on him a little bit to get the finish. Right? It's not like he hit the jab and Burns was knocked out. You know what I mean? Then I would be like very concerned about his chin, but I don't think that's the case.
not going to read this guy's username, but he says, but that job also did a lot to Gamebred. Speaking about Wonderboy against Gamebred, that's true. I mean, granted, I think Masvidal is a much different fighter than he was when he fought Thompson, but that was a clear win. Like, Masvidal fans will give you a bit of revisionist history on that one. Oh, it was a close fight. No, it wasn't. Thompson had pitched almost a perfect game. If we're talking a baseball analogy there, he dominated Masvidal in that fight. And that was one of those fights where you're like, okay, Masvidal's probably done. Like, nothing's really going to happen. And then of course he had that great 2019, which is basically the fighter of the year as well. What do you think is next for Josh Emmett? I should probably actually get in touch with Josh. The last I heard, I think he was looking to return either the summer or the fall. The division could look a little bit differently here. Now, I did speak to Edson Barbosa yesterday. He's telling me he's not ready to come back until at least August or late August or September. Did mention Zabit as a possible option. I know Zabit's not really with the UFC right now. That tweet blew up, by the way. I wasn't expecting that. People are like, oh my God, this fight could, but obviously there's a lot of red tape if that fight was to take place. But the reason I bring him up is because he could be an option. But the thing that Barbosa made very clear, and the interview will be out later today on Middle Easy, is that Barbosa said, look, I'm not fighting guys ranked below me. So people talking about Giga Chikadze fighting him, that's not happening. Guys like, people that are ranked below him, that's not going to happen as well. So I think like an Emmett fight would make sense if Emmett wants to come back then, if he wants to come back sooner. Your options are a bit more limited because I don't think Calvin Kattar's ready to come back right now. He's going to need a bit. So it really depends on when Josh Emmett wants to come back in the octagon. The division could look a lot different here. You could always do the Arnold Allen fight. He's number 7. He just fought. Maybe Emmett's ready to come back. So I think right now, if I'm going to place a bet on who I think the next opponent for Josh Emmett could be, we go with Arnold Allen at this point. What do you think?
No, I think when Yair Rodriguez comes back, I think they put him against Yair Rodriguez. I feel like you got to respect the resume of Edson Barbosa, what he has done, what he has accomplished, and just the excitement factor that he brings to every matchup. And he needs a big fight, man. He's not getting any younger. They should push him to that title. They should push him towards that title. And the best way to do it is put him against Yair. He's sitting at number 3. He hasn't fought in a while. He's ready to come back. So I have a mole at the PI, and the mole told me that he saw Yair Rodriguez at the PI, and he said he looked like death. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, he looked so old, man. He just looked ragged. I was like, what are you talking? And he's like, yeah, it didn't look like him. He didn't look like a fighter like that was ready to fight. And I was just like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, it was just. So I wonder what that means. I wonder what Yair is doing. I wonder, has he gone like down a rabbit hole or something since his suspension? Because when is he supposed to come back? Do you remember? He got suspended.
I don't know. He was like a 6-month suspension. Now, we do got to point out as well, he was in the camp for Cowboy Cerrone. He was with Cowboys. That's probably why he was in Vegas, because Cowboy fought recently. But that's interesting to hear. But, as much as I think you got a legit source there, I don't put too much stock in how a fighter looks. I can't tell you how many times I've watched a weigh-in and someone's like, oh my God, they're going to lose tomorrow. And then they end up winning. Like, so it's like, but that is interesting. Like, why has he not fought that much? And what was the reason he got suspended? We should point that out, is because he didn't have his whereabouts updated. I mean, look, I get fighters got a lot on their mind. You and I have had how many interviews, where fighters have missed the time. I had 2 yesterday that missed. Not going to show, didn't mention any names here, but it is annoying.
Come on, tell us who it is.
I'll tell you off air so we don't get anyone in trouble here. But anyways, like, I understand there's a lot on their mind, but how do you miss that? Especially when you're going to get suspended. Like, I forget, is he with First Round? I was trying to remember who his management was, but it's like, dude, you got to get that sorted out.
And you have an app. You have an app.
You have an app. Exactly.
Yeah, you have an app.
That could happen as well. But yeah, anyways, back to Emmett. Yeah, if Yair's ready, the Emmett fight would make sense as well. That's fine. I'm just thinking, like, I didn't even think of him at this point because I don't know what's going on.
I would want Emmett to come back to a different. I would want Emmett to come back and fight somebody else, like
Calvin Kattar would be the fight for me.
Yeah, Calvin Kattar would be a good one. Even Edson Barbosa, if he was willing to wait for Calvin Kattar, I would like to see that fight too. I think that's a phenomenal matchup.
He was down for it. Again, he just wants some time off. By the way, he wants to spend his money, the big bonus. He wants to buy a motorcycle. And I was like, okay, dude, just make sure you're slow. And he's like, don't worry, I'm a slow driver. Like, I'm not going to go out there and be reckless. So it's like, okay, good. Because, we've seen how many motorcycle accidents over the years with not just fighters, but,
Frank Mir, man. That's
exactly. Frank Mir. That's a great example there. Roman, good to hear from you, Roman. Again, Roman's on pretty much all the streams I do. So really thanks for the support there. Roman, he says, what's up, lads? There's a win over Font. Where does a win over Font put Cody if he wins? This is where things get interesting, John, and I'm a little bit worried because I think if Cody wins, especially if he gets a finish, now I'm not saying that will happen. We already previewed this fight, by the way. Spoiler alert. If you want to know our picks, we'll talk about them at the end anyways, because if you missed last week's show. If Cody wins, I could see a scenario where he's fighting Hyon for an interim title. or some sort of title, because it seemed like they wanted to make that fight for a while. And there is some history there. If you remember, they got into it at UFC 245, I think was the fight where, was it Hyon fought Uriah Faber, who's a teammate of Garbrandt. So maybe they pushed that. Does he deserve it? I mean, not really. With you look at who else is in that division. To me, the Sandhagen-Dillashaw winner should get the winner of like whoever's next. And then you got Aljo in the mix as well. Obviously, I mean, we got to see the Aljo-Yan rematch. They shouldn't do a fight in between there. But to answer your question, where does it go? I wouldn't put anything past Cody Garbrandt in terms of the opportunities that are there. If he does win, if I was the UFC and I was basing this off merit and not necessarily entertainment and other things, I would do Cody versus Aldo. I think that would make more sense, in terms of a matchup. But don't be surprised if Cody does win, they slot him into a title picture just because that's what the UFC. Because look, they were going to give him a title shot at 125 after beating Sun Tzu. Like, that doesn't make much sense. So don't put anything past it there. What do you think? Are you buying into my conspiracy theory, John?
Somewhat. I talked to Eric Nixick, and he just, worked out with Aljo yesterday. And I think that's the first day back from neck surgery. So he said he's going back slow, which means like he's not really doing anything. He hit pads. That's it.
I heard 9 months was what I was hearing.
Yeah. So like, I don't think he's going to be defending the title anytime soon. But the scenario that you put out there, if Cody wins, he's gonna fight Hyon for the interim title. I see that happening.
Well, I do wonder. Here's my thing with interim titles, and fans might disagree with me on this, and I'm curious to get your thoughts in the chat if you could disagree or agree or not. If you know the champion's going to be out more than a year, like let's say or around a year, I'm fine with an interim title. That's okay because you got to keep the division moving. Now, is Aljo going to be back before his year's up? I got to do my math. I would think he would be. So I don't know if you need to do an interim title, and I don't know if that makes sense for like what if Hyon loses? Then he's he gets this illegal knee. He was the former champ, like. Again, I think they could have solved this entire thing by not giving Aljo the belt and just making the title vacant. That would have solved all these problems. Aljo wouldn't have got the fan backlash, all this stuff. But here we are. Aljo's the champ. But yeah, the UFC is weird when it comes to that stuff, right? They were trying to, that's why I think it took them so long to do Aljo and Hyon, because they wanted Marlon Moraes to beat Sandhagen, right? And they wanted to do Moraes and Hyon, I think, right? I think
we might get into this situation. Remember when Renan Barão was the champ and he was the interim champ for a long time? Yeah. And Dominick Cruz was the champ, the undisputed champ. Yeah. I think we could get into that situation here because a neck injury is very serious, man. 9 months, and you don't know what can happen in that 9 months, right? He could have hurt it again, training, something, you know what I mean? So I feel like if he's going to be gone for 9 months with an injury like that, they should have an interim title fight.
I'm okay with
Hyon
it. Yeah.
I think Hyon versus the winner of Rob Font Garbrandt. I think that's okay. You know what I mean?
Even but is it though? Because then you've got Sandhagen and I realize that Sandhagen
and
lost.
They get the next crack. They get the next crack, right?
Yeah, I guess because the fight got moved. I guess you could make that argument.
But I don't know.
I feel for Sandhagen. Yeah,
if they fought already, I could see that the winner of that fight fighting Hyon next, like in late summer or something like that. I could see them putting that together because Aljo's not going to come back anytime soon. But yeah, that delay changed everything, man. It kind of screwed Corey Sandhagen. It kind of screwed, what is it? TJ Dillashaw too, because whoever won that fight could be fighting Hyon. It could have been announced already, but it's not. Now we got Font and Garbrandt. I don't know. It makes it interesting, man. More stuff to talk about. More possibilities for the interim title. But people got to remember, there's no interim title yet, so we're just playing hypotheticals right now.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of moving pieces in that weight class. By the way, they did announce Sandhagen Dillashaw will be taking place on July 24th, which if you watch my interview with Sandhagen, he said they were looking at July, so I was kind of right about that as well back then. What do you think of the Anthony Johnson situation? We sort of talked about this. I feel like we talked about this before, did we not? Or maybe this was on another podcast. Was it last week or week before? I can't remember. The ID thing. Yeah. I mean, it could, like, again, we're not criminal justice people. I don't know sort of the ins and outs. It could have been that he was with a friend and used his friend's card if he was buying something. I don't know. But either way, it seems like the law definitely follows Anthony Johnson around outside the cage. So my thoughts on it are, the guy's got to stay out of trouble. Like, come on, you're a good fighter. You're with Bellator now. You're making good money. You could be one of the faces of this promotion. If you just get your act together, this is not a good look. So that's all I got to say on that. Not much more.
I saw a funny tweet. Someone said, "Man, Bellator must not be paying Anthony Johnson that much because
he's having a card steal money." Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, I hope they get all situated and figured out. And if he's innocent, clear his name. But if he's not, talk all the shit you want about him.
What about Calvin Kattar for Emmett? Yeah, we talked about that. I think that would be a fun fight. I think that actually makes sense because Emmett's a little bit older. He's been off some injuries, and Kattar needs to bounce back and show he's a contender. I like that fight probably the most, but it just depends on if the timing works out. In terms of when Kattar's ready to come back, and same thing with Emmett with his injury. I would imagine Emmett's ready to come back a little bit sooner, but we'll see what happens there. Mike, you can ignore Cool Man's question. This guy's done this to me before. I know this is complete BS about the Chandler thing that he's saying. So, John, you can see it in the chat. I don't know why people do this and waste time. It's so annoying. What's next for Dominick Reyes? You know what I think would be a good fight to do now? Well, it's tough. What do you get? How old's Dominick Reyes? So what does the UFC think of Reyes at this point? Because now that's, 3 losses in a row. Not going to get cut. He's a good fighter. He's just losing to good guys. And again, I talked about this after he lost to Yuri. Like, he put on a good fight. He gave Yuri everything he had. He just lost to a better fighter. He's only 31. So the question is what the UFC wants to do with him. There's 2 ways you can go about this. There's the, we'll give you a fight to kind of, thanks for fighting all these tough guys. We'll give you kind of an easier fight. If they wanted to do that, the fight to make is Misha Cirkunov. Misha's, I love Misha. I've been following him long before he's in the UFC. Misha's not a contender. Misha's barely a gatekeeper at this point. He's losing to, he just lost to Ryan Spann. Misha is not I don't even think he's in the gatekeeper status there. So if you wanted to get Reyes a bounce back win, it's the Misha Cirkunov fight. If they want to go that route, if they want to see if Reyes can still, be a contender and still move his way up, to me, the Anthony Smith fight makes sense. There's a bit of bad blood there from the past, not on Smith's end, because I asked Smith about that. He's like, I don't know what the issue is there, but Reyes says that there's some fights offered. That might be a fun fight to make as well. So I think those are 2 options that you could do with Dominick Reyes. It depends which direction the UFC wants to go. If they want to say, look, Dom, you've lost these fights, you still got to prove you're a contender, you fight Anthony Smith, because I think there's still a question mark on where Anthony Smith fits in the division. He's coming off a weird win over Jimmy Crute. I thought he looked good, leading up to that. A lot of people discredit him and be like, oh, Crute was destroying him. No, he wasn't. Smith looked great. It's unfortunate what happened in the fight. And then he beat Devin Clark before that, and we don't really know where Clark is in the division. So I think Smith and Reyes would be a good fight as well. So what do you think of what's next for Dominick Reyes?
First of all, Reyes has lost to who? He's lost to Jones, which was very close, possibly winning that fight in many people's eyes. Then after that, he lost to Jan Blachowicz, who is the current reigning champion, and he lost to Jiri Prochazka, who is possibly going to be the next champion. You can't underestimate Reyes, man. Like, people are throwing him to the side like, oh, he's trash. Dude, he's lost to the best in the division. If he steps back and faces one of the guys in 10
anyone outside of that group, he probably beats. Like, for example, if he fought Anthony Smith, I would favor him over Smith. If he fought Misha Cirkunov, I think that would be a first round finish for Reyes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, so I think they should put him against somebody that's around 10 to 15. Build his confidence again. Get
Misha Cirkunov. That's the fight.
Yeah, Misha Cirkunov. I think even the winner of Hill Craig would be a good fight for him.
Well, the only thing there is I don't know. Personally, I think Hill's going to beat. I'm really high on Jamal Hill. I think he beats Paul Craig, and I think Hill is going to be giving a lot of guys problems in that division. Honestly, I think if Hill fought Reyes, I think Hill wins. I think he's that good. I don't know. I don't know if you give him that much of a step up with a Reyes, because again, Reyes is sort of, didn't he just have that fight with Yuri? Basically, isn't Yuri sort of still an up and comer with Hill? I get where you're going with it in terms of the rankings, but I don't want to see Hill fight Reyes because I don't want to see either guy lose, right? And I think with Hill, you give him maybe I don't know. Maybe you give Hill the winner of Walker and Santos. That would make more sense to me.
That's a good one too. If Walker wasn't booked, I would have put Reyes and Walker. But I think Reyes is gonna probably sit out for a little while, right?
He should.
That was a devastating knockout. Yeah, he should probably come back at the end of the year, like November, December. And man, I think by then the division will shake out a little bit. The fights will happen, and then he'll probably get a good matchup. But the UFC sometimes, man, they don't want to give you little layups. They want to push you forward, like
unless you're Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley.
But if you look at Edmund Shabazian, he's fighting Jack Hermanson this weekend, I believe. Stuff like that is going on. You know what I mean?
It's great. Yeah. I think with that, when I look at that, I think it's more that they think that he can beat Jack Hermanson, which I think is a big mistake because we talked about it. I think Hermanson wins that fight. Or maybe they're just like, look, Edmund, you really showed us that you're not that good. We're going to give you this guy who's not, because I just don't get the matchmaking there, right? Why is he fighting Hermanson? Even if he beats Hermanson, that's not a big enough win for him to be back in the driver's seat, so to speak. And if he loses, that's, devastating for a guy that's 23 who's lost back-to-back fights. I guess it depends how the fight goes, but we'll have to look at that as well. Anyways, we sort of answered that question with Reyes. Roman, what are your thoughts on Oliveira saying he could win the featherweight title? I've mentioned it before. Oliveira versus Ortega would be a great stylistic matchup. Charles, listen, man. I was big on you going into the last fight. You look great. I picked you. You came through. Congrats on that. Let's stop with this featherweight talk, okay? Time and time again, you've missed weight. I don't care if you're with the best nutritionist in the world. I don't want to see him at featherweight. He looked bigger than Chandler the other night. Like, why is he trying to do, like, you just won the title, dude. You got enough killers in that weight class. Stop worrying about the featherweight division. And that's a division as well that's got a lot of contenders. So I don't want to see it. Stay at 155. Don't go down to 145. He's tried that and missed weight how many times? Come on.
Why is he talking about going down a weight class?
Here's the thing, though. I just want to point this out. It could be a situation where someone asked him that. Like, I always get that too when it's like, I'll mention like a possible matchup in the future. Like even this Zabit thing. Someone yesterday reported that Edson Barbosa only wants to fight Zabit in August, April. That's not what he said. If you read the tweet, it says he's interested in the fight because I asked him about it. It's not like he's going out of his way. If you watch the full interview, we talked about a bunch of different opponents, Calvin Kattar, whoever. So it could be a situation where someone did ask him about that fight and he's like, yeah, I'd be down for it. Because of course, what else is he going to say? He's going to be like, no, I don't want to fight him. Then people are going to be like, oh, he's scared of Ortega.
And what is the update on Zabit? Like, I heard he was retired.
It'd be great to get an interview with him. John, you have a better shot than I do right now. Maybe you should reach out to your favorite management group and see if they'll grant you that. By the way, I got a funny story about that. I'll tell you off air after this about. Well, actually, no, I'll tell it to you right now. I don't mind. I can't get Dan Ige because apparently he still works a little bit for them. And Dan said he'd do it. He loves my interviews. He actually said, I really enjoy your interviews. Do a great job. But he's like, I don't want to put myself in an awkward spot. I said, I don't want to put you in that spot. We won't do the interview. It's fine. So I'll probably talk to Eric Nixick like you did this morning and get an update on him there. But it's a bummer because, it's not helping anyone. If anything, it's hurting Dan because he should be getting more media. He's a main event. So I'm just going to leave it at that. What was the question? Oh yeah, we talked about it there about the Oliveira. Was there anything else you wanted to mention about Oliveira and Ortega?
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes the question is posed to them, but I don't like that question. Like, why ask a question to a guy that just won the lightweight title? Do you want to go back to featherweight? You know what I mean? Like, you should be worrying about the killers at lightweight, dude. Like, you are the champion at the most stacked division possibly in that promotion, and you're talking about going to a different weight class already. Come on, dude. There's Dustin Poirier. Most people don't even think you're the best fighter in the division right now, even though you hold the belt. Most people think what? Dustin Poirier is the best fighter in that division. You should be calling him out. That's what you should be doing. Telling everybody, hey, I want to fight Dustin Poirier because he's the best in the division, or you think he's the best. I want to prove myself, not go down to featherweight and lose 10 pounds and then get your head knocked off by some featherweight. And then what does that do to the belt? Like the lightweight belt.
All these guys are trying to be McGregor. That's the problem. It's like Cejudo, all these guys, they're trying to try to cement a legacy. And look, like, if you want to do that after a couple title defenses, okay, but I still don't think it's a good idea. But like, you just won the belt. It's like people who wanted to see, like when Weili beat Andrade, are like, oh, we got to see her in Valentina. No, we don't. We need to see her fight strawweights, and then we'll go from there, right? So I don't get the link there.
You got to go up. Don't go down. Going up, yes. If you go up and lose, okay, you were up. The guys are bigger. Okay, you have a built-in excuse. If you go down, there's no built-in excuse. You just got beat. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not going to be good for you. So yeah, let's
we got producer Mike with a question here. He says, Oliveira Poirier or Oliveira McGregor, which one do you want to see more? Who wins each one? I'm going to tell you this right now, John. I don't think Oliveira McGregor ever happens, even if McGregor beats Poirier. I just don't see that happen because what's McGregor got to gain from that? Yes, you could get the title potentially, but that's not a good matchup for McGregor with Oliveira's ground game and just everything that he brings to the table. And we saw he's got a chin on him too. He can take a big Michael Chandler shot. I don't think that'll ever happen. So let's say it would happen. Either way, I think the Poirier fight's more interesting. Poirier's a more well-rounded fighter than McGregor, in my opinion. McGregor's got the power edge. He's probably a better striker, but that would be more interesting to me as the Poirier fight, because if it goes into deep waters, I feel better about Poirier in the fourth round than I would McGregor. That's what it comes down to too, as well. So for me, Poirier Oliveira would be the much more interesting fight for me.
McGregor, I could see him, if he does fight Oliveira, like getting tapped out in the first round, like that bad. Like
Oliveira's so good.
Just outmatched completely. Yeah, so good. And the Poirier, of course, the Poirier matchup is the one that we want to see, man. It doesn't matter. Like, that's the fight to make at lightweight for the title. It's so good because both guys are so well-rounded, and you know that, they're going to stand and bang with each other too, even though they could take it to the ground, even though they could submit each other. And I would like to see those, grappling exchanges between Poirier and Oliveira to see who's really better in the grappling. We know Oliveira is great, and we know Poirier is good, but can Poirier tap Oliveira? That's what I want to see. I know that Poirier probably could knock out Oliveira, and now we know that Oliveira could probably knock out Poirier, right? Because he did it to Chandler, which I was shocked. Were you shocked at the outcome though? Like, how the shift, the swing of momentum came in, and then he finished it in the second round.
Of course.
We were watching it, right? Yeah,
of
so
course.
we were watching it. Yeah.
Glad to see you remember that. Should the UFC book Rakic versus Prohaska as the co-main event on the September pay-per-view? Well, if you guys saw my interview with Yuri on Sunday, which shout out to Yuri, one of my favorite interviews, he says that they're looking at him being the backup for that fight as well. I think what they should do, to be honest, is just book Yuri against Rakic for that card, and then if they need someone falls out, then you take him off that fight maybe. Or, well, no, then the other thing is, like, he could still be the backup and then maybe have the Rakic fight booked like a couple weeks later or something if they wanted to, right? Like, I know that's tough. You're cutting weight or whatever. But I think, no, I think Yuri, to me, and I've said this before, I didn't say this before the Reyes fight, but I'm saying it now. Yuri did enough to earn himself a title shot. The fact that he beat Reyes the way he did, the fact that he finished him, the fact that it was just such an exciting fight, and the fact that he went for it, like he even put himself in bad positions. He himself said that he was stunned a bit from Reyes when he got hit a couple times in that fight. So the fact that he took risks, he should be rewarded for that because the risk paid off. You get a big win. He should be getting the next title shot for the winner of Glover and Hyon. But so I think he could be a backup, and I think that so I think like what you're suggesting with the Rakic fight, I get it. It makes sense. But at the same time, like, I feel like he's ahead of Rakic at this point, even though he doesn't have as many fights. He's got 2 signature wins so far in the octagon. To me, I would give him the backup. And then if that doesn't happen, then maybe you give him Rakic after that just to keep him active. But I would pick Yuri in that fight. In fact, I'd pick Yuri against anyone right now. He's so good. I'm sold on. I'm all in on the Yuri train now. 100%.
Well, Yuri, Rakic, both, top contenders in that division.
But Yuri's looked more impressive, I think.
Yeah,
like, Rakic got a nice win over Santos, but it wasn't like the type of win we were like, okay, this guy's going to give Hyon problems,
People are still living off that Jimmy Manuwa head kick knockout.
Yeah.
People are still riding from that, what I mean? Like, Rakic hasn't had a performance like that since. Yuri has had back-to-back just killer performances. So I don't know. I think Prohaska, he's next in line, and Rakic is behind him. This is just my opinion. I don't think they should fight each other. I think they should just wait for their fights for the title, right? And Rakic maybe might fight somebody, but Prohaska, I think he should wait. I think he deserves it, man. He's had incredible performances.
Next question. Who do you think the strawweight champion will be by the end of the year? It's going to be Rose Namajunas. I think Hyon wins this weekend. I think she gets the title shot. I think Rose beats her.
I don't even think Rose fights this year.
No,
I don't think so. I have just a feeling that she might not even fight this year, and I don't know if Hyon is going to get that title shot. I do think that she'll likely beat Esparza, but man, that's a close fight too. You know what I mean? That fight is very close.
I think it stays standing, and I think Hyon picks her apart on the feet.
Yeah, if it stays standing, then it's just Hyon all day. You know what I mean? But
if Carla can get her, you're right though. I mean, if Carla can use her wrestling, get her to the ground, that's where things get interesting because we haven't really seen the ground game. But
and we both interviewed Hyon, right?
Yeah, we did. By the way, shout out to Leo, one of the best translators out there.
Cool
that guy's awesome,
hell, man. Yeah.
And Paradigm, they're great. I mean, like, listen, there's some management groups I rag on. Paradigm's pretty good. They're really good about being organized, setting stuff up. If you guys want a little insight into good management groups, them, Iridium, there's a lot of good management groups out there that do a good job of
Ruby's good too.
Ruby Sports, the only management group that puts stuff in a Google Calendar, which I appreciate because I need that. That's literally my life is my Google Calendar. I wouldn't be as organized as I would. But anyways, I think Rose fights this year. I think she fights in December, and I think she fights Hyon. And I think Hyon wins this weekend. And then I don't know what happens with the rest of the division, but we'll be keeping eyes on that.
What do you think? Do you think Wei Li fights Joanna again? Do you think that the rematch is next?
Yeah.
Do you like that?
No, I want to see. Honestly, I want to see Joanna fight someone else. Like, why is she not fighting Marina Rodriguez or Mackenzie Dern or someone different? Like,
it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
I guess not, but I don't think she beats Wei Li either, and she's not getting Rose. Like, she lost to Rose twice, so it's like I don't know what her strategy is going forward. Like, I get it. Like, she's at the stage in her career where the window of winning a title is getting shorter and shorter, or close. I don't know, however you want to say it. The window. You understand what I'm saying? She's not the opportunity for her to win a title is diminishing by the day. But
well, she only, from what I remember, she only has one fight left in her current contract, and she wants a big fight, something that's going to give her somewhat of a payday.
Is that a retirement? Like, I didn't have it. I was going to interview her actually, and then everyone interviewed her last week, and I'm like, okay, forget it. Like, it's not, not going to bother. But like, is the one fight thing? Is that because I kind of get the sense that then it might be the end of the road for her. Like, altogether, I think it might be retirement. I think that's why she's being so picky about that, as opposed to her being, I'm going to go do free agency, because Bellator doesn't have a strawweight division. She's not going to Ryzen. She's probably not going to one championship. I don't know. Like, to me, it's like, to me, it's like title or time to make babies. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming here, like, and I'm not trying to be misogynist or whatever. It's just that she's expressed interest in starting a family, and there's
And
only
she has a
certain
lot
window.
of things going on outside of the sport.
She does,
like
yeah,
business related, right? So
yeah. Every time on Instagram, I see her
that.
doing something different.
I could see that. I could see her really being picky and choosy in her final fight. And if that goes well, then she re-ups with the UFC and gets maybe a title fight if she possibly can. But I don't see many fights left for her. I mean, I think she's solidified her place in women's mixed martial arts history, man, like as one of the best ever.
She was the dominant strawweight champion before she ran into Rose Namajunas. I'm with you there. That beating that she gave Carlos Esparza is still one of the most dominant title wins I've ever seen.
Penne?
Yeah, Jessica Penne too.
That was a murder, right?
That was
a murder show.
It was really really bad fight there as well. Yeah, there's something else I was going to say, but I forgot. It just escaped my mind. What do you think is next for Dan Hooker? John might have some more insight. I don't know if you know this, John. He parted ways with his management. I just spoke to them yesterday. So apparently Dan Hooker without he was with some or like it was like a PR group he was with or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so he parted ways with him yesterday. So I was told to just contact him directly. So I'm going to try that because you know what the problem is. I'll tell you this, and you probably run into this way more than I do because of your time difference. Like with guys like Whitaker and Hooker, I always forget to like reach out to them because I usually do all my booking my interviews in the morning, but for them it's like early in the morning, like 3 a.m. So I'm always like making a note on my phone. Okay, message them like later in the day, and I always forget because I'm too busy. So I have the opposite problem of you, I'm sure, when it comes to that stuff. But anyways, what's next for him? RDA, right?
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense, and I think that's what he wants, and I think that will give it to him. But if I was him, I'd fight Tony Ferguson.
Yeah,
that's because look at Tony Ferguson sitting at 6. Hooker's sitting
Tony's
at
gonna lose
8.
though.
He's a big name, even though he's gonna lose. It's a big name. It's a comeback fight. I mean, Dan's coming off back-to-back losses too. So it's like you got to be really selective of who you fight. And a lot of people are calling out Dan that's outside the rankings, and I love his response to that. It's like, man, I did this much. I finished 4 guys in a row to fight a ranked guy, and you guys have a couple of wins. And
I did like that. It's like people saying, "Oh, Islam Makhachev should fight him." No, he shouldn't. Like Islam has 1 ranked win. Like Hooker's ahead of him. Sorry, you got to wait your turn. And I trust me. And it sucks that we're seeing him fight Thiago Moises, even though it'll be a good fight for Islam. It doesn't really do anything for him. There are guys ranked lower than Hooker that should be taking that fight. Just saying.
Yeah. Or Hooker and Kevin Lee would be a good fight too, I think.
Well, Kevin Lee wants to come back at 170, and Kevin Lee's. If you're Kevin Lee, you're taking an easy fight. You need an easy fight. You got dominated by Oliveira in your last fight, and granted, Oliveira's the champ, but he should fight Mike Perry. That's the fight.
Is that an easy fight for him though?
It is. Yeah. Oh yeah.
It is.
Mike Perry is not the same.
170.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he wins that. No problem.
If he wrestles.
Which we've seen. Mike Perry's not good. I think the curtain's been pulled on Mike Perry. He's not as good as we think he is. And he's got all these issues outside the cage. I'll take that fight any day for Kevin Lee. As opposed, I'd rather Kevin Lee fight him than Sean Brady or him fight, some of these other names that they're talking, right? Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. But
if he wrestles, against Mike Perry, I can see it. But if he sits there and try to stand and trade with Mike Perry, that's
I agree. Guy got outstruck by Alex Quinta. Okay. By the way, just another reminder: hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you guys are watching this, we'll get a few more questions in here. We got about 9 minutes left on the stream. Please tell me we're going to see Gaethje and Chandler this year. I talked about it on the live stream. I'm going to have an article on MMA Surge out later today, arguing that very thing. They got to do Gaethje and Chandler. Makes way too much sense. Similar styles. There's a bit of history there too in terms of their wrestling backgrounds and stuff, and that's just an awesome fight. And it makes sense. Chandler just lost his title fight. Gaethje lost his title fight. It makes sense. Like this idea that Gaethje's just going to step in, and I know his manager is saying, "Oh, he deserves." No, he doesn't. You're coming off a loss. You shouldn't get a title shot. And I know it was against the guy that no one's been able to beat, but still, I think Gaethje and Chandler makes a ton of sense. Does it happen? I think there could be some politics that would prevent that from happening. But rankings wise, style wise, everything wise, it makes way too much sense. They got to do that fight.
Yeah, that's the fight to make. And you know what's another unique movement in the rankings is Beneil Dariush sitting at number 3. That makes me think about a lot of stuff right now in that division, and I think Beneil might end up getting a title shot without even fighting one more time. It could work out like that for him. I think that could be a big possibility. Especially if McGregor wins, the trilogy, and like you said, McGregor probably won't take the fight against Oliveira. I could see Beneil Dariush later on this year sliding in, or Oliveira wants to come back early. You know what I mean? You never know. You know, guys say they want to take time off, but when the UFC comes and says, "Hey,
here's
the
your
title
money
shot in 2 months, you want it, or you're gonna sit out?" You're gonna take the title shot, right? When are they gonna come back to you and offer you another title shot? So I could see that happening, man. I don't know if Charles Oliveira is gonna wait until McGregor or Poirier is ready to fight. Do you see Charles Oliveira waiting for them? I don't think so. I think he's gonna
No, I
come back
think
quick.
he's going to want to get back in there, but well, technically, let's play hypothetical here. Let's say Dustin gets a similar result to his first fight, and he wants to fight Oliveira. If Oliveira fights in September, is that really too far of a gap there? I realized it would be July to September for Poirier, assuming he wins, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting there. Before we forget, we got to do underdog picks for this Saturday, so we'll get to those. We'll answer a few more questions here. So we got Rob Font and Cody Garbrandt this Saturday. My underdog pick on this card is going to be Yancy Medeiros. He's coming back. He hasn't fought in a very long time, not since February of 2020, where he lost to Lando Venata. This is the last fight on his contract, John, so a lot of urgency there to go out there and get the win here. I like the fact he stayed in Hawaii for this camp. He's working with Max Holloway. It seems like he's, you even just talked to him. I know you spoke to him as well. You can just see a different Yancy Medeiros there, a more controlled, more focused Yancy Medeiros. I know Damir Hazovic is a very good fighter. I think Yancy, if it stays on the feet, I think he can outstrike him. So I'm going Yancy Medeiros for the upset as my underdog pick this week. Who do you like, and what do you think of my pick?
I like your pick, but I'm picking the opposite on my official picks, and I'm gonna go with Damir. But my underdog pick will be Ricardo Ramos versus Bill
Algeo.
Yeah. How do you say it? Algeo?
Algeo,
right? I think Ramos, man, I think he's gonna come back and bounce back off that last loss. He's still a young guy. He's still developing, and he's actually trained stateside this time, which
Alpha
is
Male,
a huge difference. Yeah, I think whenever he trains stateside at Alpha Male or wherever, he performs much better. It's just when he trains in Brazil, he's just so limited with training partners, and when you go to Alpha Male, it's just like the Walmart of gyms, right? It's just you could go there and get anything you need. So I think Ramos is going to go in there and take care of business as the underdog in this one.
By the way, I'm just realizing right now, if you put Dominick Cruz and Corey Sandhagen together, you'd get Bill Algeo. Kind of looks like a hybrid of both. Anyway, don't you think a little bit? Anyways, no, I like Algeo on that fight. Ramos is just a hit or miss guy. Like, losing badly to Lerone Murphy, got knocked out at bantamweight as well. Like, there's definitely potential there. I just don't. To me, it's just too much of a wild card right now. Algeo's a tough guy. We saw him go toe to toe with Brendan Loughnane on Contender Series. I think he can survive whatever Ramos brings to the table here, and I think he picks up a decision, but we'll see. I mean, that is one I was kind of looking at as well in terms of an underdog pick.
Another one is Claudio Silva. He's an underdog against
I saw that too. Court McGee, though, is one of those guys that can really kind of overwhelm you a little bit.
Just win, basically.
It's sort of
not memorable, but Claudio Silva, he's a killer, man. If he goes out there and puts it together, that dude will go in there and dice you up real quick. So I think this is a decent underdog pick. But Court McGee is a little bit more proven. But that's another guy, like, is age going to catch up to him too? You know what I mean? Like,
it has already. I mean, he just lost to Condit, right, in his last fight. So
exactly, and Condit is a shell of himself right now too. So.
Do you want to put up Bellator too? Or go through our picks. So, by the way, we're picking Rob Font. Both of us are picking Rob Font, right, in the main event on Saturday. We agreed on that. I'm trying to remember last week.
Let me see. Yes, I picked Rob Font.
Okay, so anyways, we're good on there. Do you want to go to Bellator, Mike, and we'll just do some quick picks on this as we're wrapping up the show. Maybe we'll get to a question or two if we have the Bellator up there. Okay, so obviously we're all picking Cyborg here. This is an interesting one in the co-main event. I don't think Darion Caldwell should be a -350 favorite against Higo. Higo's very good. We saw Higo beat a wrestler not that long ago in Sean Bunch. I think Higo's a live dog in this fight. Am I going to pick him? No, I'll pick Caldwell. I did pick Caldwell on the app, but I think Higo there's some value there. Being plus, he's plus 565. Actually, he's even a bigger thing on here. I see he's plus 565. He should not be that much of an underdog. This guy trains with the Pipple brothers. He's very legit. Higo is very, very, very good. So yeah, that's one I would be looking at if you guys are looking to bet the fight. What's another one I'm looking at?
Another one is Saeed Awad.
Saeed Awad against Nate Andrews. Yeah, Nate Andrews should not be as high as he is either. Nate Andrews is he's a solid guy, but he's not really does anything special. But I think the thing with Awad is he's so old. I'm trying to remember how old he is. I want to say he's like 37 or something. So he's getting up there in age a little bit as well.
Is Grant Neal related to
Jeff Neal? No.
No. Okay.
Not that I know. I'm almost positive about that. Also, Valerie Loretta being minus 600. Like I interviewed Hannah Guy. She's not very experienced, but that's just crazy to me that you're going to bet minus 600 on Valerie Loretta. It seems a little much. Here's another one I would be keeping an eye on as well, too, in terms of looking at dogs on this card. I think Austin Vanderford probably beats Fabian Edwards, but Fabian Edwards had a very close fight against Costello Vancinas to the point of where I think some people felt like he beat him. Vanderford's been great, but the level of competition hasn't been there. Fabian Edwards, very legit. I think he's another guy that I would be looking at. Actually, it's only plus 195 here, but I would be looking at him as maybe a potential underdog there as well. I got the win over Mike Shipman. That was a good win too. I would be keeping an eye on him as a potential dog against Austin Vanderford. Because again, people just look at Vanderford. They're like, oh yeah, it's Paige Van Zant's husband. And, he trains an American Top Team. He must be good. But I don't know. I think Fabian Edwards, it's going to be a very close fight as well. Also really looking forward to the Leah McCourt and Janae Harding fight. I didn't have a chance to talk to Janae this fight, but she's pretty good. And I guess you didn't get to talk to Danny Sabatello. He's fired up, man. He's got this 4-fight deal with Bellator. He's fighting Brett Johns now. He's like, I'm going to knock this guy's head off, like very confident. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited just because after interviewing Sabatello, I'm very interested to see how he does in his Bellator debut. Got a 4-fight contract, which you don't see too often from Bellator. Usually they'll sign a guy on short notice. Hey, if you win this, we'll re-sign you. That's not what happened there. He looked pretty legit there. So there we go. That's our thoughts on Bellator. Might as well get back full screen on here. So there you go. Just another reminder. Sorry if you guys had questions. We didn't get to them. We'll be back next week. We do the show every week, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. And if you guys missed it on Twitter, we just extended our contract with Fantasy Fanatics. We're going to be here for a lot longer, I should say. Super happy about working with the guys over here. Again, download the app, Fantasy Fanatics MMA app. They've got it on Google Play. They got it on your iPhone as well, the iTunes store, whatever. So you can find all that there. Make your picks. We put our picks in there too. You can go head-to-head with us. You can talk some smack. We're all about that. That's totally cool with us. Also, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Before we go, John, anything you got coming up this week, interview-wise, anything you want to plug, I'll give you the floor here.
This week, man, just go follow me on social media, on Twitter, JHKMMA. You'll see all my interviews pop up over there. One thing that I'm proud of is I interviewed 15 of the 16 Bantamweight Grand Prix fighters on Ryzen, and I'm trying to get the 16th one. So all of those should be coming out on South China Morning Post over there on their channel. And then I got a couple interviews. I got Jairzinho Rosenstrike coming out in a couple days, and a couple big ones next week. I don't want to reveal too much, but you know how it is, James.
I do know how it is. Okay, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Ton of interviews this past week. Yuri Prohaska. Who else did I talk to? Your Rosenstrike. I talked to him this week too. You can find that on there as well. Talked to Lauren Murphy yesterday. Really good chat about her fight with Joanne Calderwood. Talked to Jordan Wright and Christos Yagos, big winners last week on the UFC card as well. Edson Barbosa, really great chat with him. That should be out later today on Middle Easy. And what are some other ones?
It's already out.
It is? Okay, well, they got it out. I got to go promote that and do that. And yeah, I'm going to be, looks like I'm going to be talking to Eddie Shaw tomorrow as well. I'll get some insight on the Korean Zombies camp, which is going to be done all at Fight Ready. So really interested for that fight against Danny Gay in a few weeks. Thanks so much for watching. For myself, James Lynch, for JHK, and the best producer in the business, Michael, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will be back a week today, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time, previewing an upcoming notable fight and taking your questions. So hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and we will see you soon.